When you combine one of the most popular genres of arms collecting, take one of its most coveted specimens, and add one of the most famous battles in American history, the result is bound to be one of the most supremely collectible specimens in the marketplace today. And that's exactly what we have in front of us. As appearing in our August premiere firearms auction, a US-issued Colt Single Action Army cavalry model that was part of the historic Lot 5 grouping, a small number of Colt revolvers with definitive ties to the famous 7th Cavalry and George Armstrong Custer. And the kicker? It's an example heretofore unknown to collectors. So what's all that mean? Well, for those unacquainted, the Colt Single Action Army is perhaps the quintessential American firearm. It's the 1873 gift from Colt Firearms to the expanding nation, and from its introduction until World War II, there were over 357,800 produced. If you've ever watched a Western, you've seen a Colt Single Action Army. They are one of the most famous handguns ever made. Of the first 8,000 produced of this eventual giant, the vast majority were made to satisfy Colt's contract with the US government, and all of which were made prior to March 14, 1874. These nascent production examples are extremely desirable for collectors. Each also bears the A inspection stamp of Principal Sub-Inspector Orville W. Ainsworth, who only worked in the capacity for the first 13 months or so of production, making his inspection marks another rare feature desired by collectors. These first 8,000 US contract revolvers were earmarked by the War Department for the Army's 10 cavalry regiments and were shipped by Colt in groups of 1,000 called lots. This becomes extremely important later on. They shipped directly from Colt to the Springfield Armory in Massachusetts, who in turn shipped them to 5 distributing arsenals. With the first 4 lots, there were no issues. Springfield received a lot from Colt and then shipped it out to the next allocated regiment. Received a lot, shipped it out, and so on. But all that changed beginning in lot number 5. Before lot 5 could be forwarded on, all shipments from Springfield were halted by the Chief of Ordnance, who, quote, forbid their issue until suitable quantities of ammunition could accompany the new revolvers. This resulted in several of Colt's shipments being on hand simultaneously at Springfield Armory, and when finally permitted to again fulfill their orders, they did so using what was available. Lot 5 from Colt was used to send a fractional shipment of 433 revolvers to the Benicia Arsenal in California, and the remainder was used to begin the next shipment to the Rock Island Arsenal, designated for the 7th Cavalry. To fulfill the rest of the shipment for the 7th Cav, other Colts from Lot 6, with just a few from Lot 7, were used. Because while Springfield Armory was under no obligation to issue the revolvers in Colt's serial number order, they did go through the lots in a relatively orderly fashion. Thus, because of Springfield Armory's breaking up of lots 5 and 6, when the 7th Cavalry's first shipment of 755 revolvers was received at Fort Abraham Lincoln via the Northern Pacific Railroad from Rock Island Arsenal, they were a mixture of lots 5, 6, and a few from lot 7. Remaining shipments of 166 Colts arrived that September and October, bringing the total issued to 939, approximately 600 from lot 5, 300 Colts from lot 6, and just 39 from lot 7. With the bulk of 7th Cavalry revolvers from Colt's lot 5, it is for this reason they are so highly sought after by collectors today. But why are they so desirable? I mean, who cares about one particular shipment from Colt? These were the Colt Single Action Army revolvers issued to George Custer and the 7th Cavalry as they accompanied the Black Hills Expedition in 1874. And 2 years later, the vast majority of those revolvers would still have been in service when Custer and the 5 companies under his direct command were slain to the last man at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Outside perhaps D-Day and Gettysburg, no other battle captures the American imagination as much as Custer's last stand. It is a story of courage and terror, of hubris and humiliation, an unmistakable reminder to a nation which was preparing in just over a week to indulge in all the self-celebration and pomp of its centennial anniversary, that even as you seek out this land's final untamed spaces, that the land was waiting, and that failure and tragedy loomed behind every grassy rise of the frontier. To this day, no evidence exists that the Ordnance Department recorded the serial numbers of the revolvers shipped to the arsenals. Thus, it is up to historians and collectors today to put together what best we can using available evidence. And the evidence today tells us that sans documented serial numbers, but knowing that Custer's 7th Cavalry was armed by a large majority of revolvers from Lot 5, that these few surviving revolvers, barring any new information, are going to be the closest one will ever get to owning a gun from the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Now, let's take a look at the evidence for this revolver. This is Colt Single Action Army serial number 4694. It falls squarely into the known serial number range for Lot 5, which is 4500 through 5504. And in a fantastic twist, 4694 was previously unknown to collectors. We recently had this gun lettered, and it wasn't even in the very thorough survey of Colt author and expert Mr. John Kopech. It is an extremely fresh gun. It's come out of the woodwork and stepped into a rather blinding limelight. And while it may have been unknown previously, it becomes part of a collecting fraternity ready to surround it with information and historical context. So we already know it's a Lot 5 Colt, but what helps place this into the holster of a 7th Cavalryman? Let's begin with two nearby serial numbers with known histories that bookend 4694. Serial 4597 was the sidearm of Lieutenant Luther Hare, a member of the 7th Cavalry, appropriately, circa 1874. And serial number 4729 was eventually located on the Pine Ridge Sioux Reservation, home of the Oglala Lakota. It's because of its serial number and discovered location that 4729 is presumed to be a Custer battle revolver. This is, of course, can't be conclusive, but few Colts come with such interesting histories as serial number 4729. Moving on to other known serial numbers, when Mr. Kopech's book was published, he noted 6 Colts by serial number as documented to the 7th Cavalry. 4694 finds itself right at home among those rare and definitive serial numbers. There's also 7 other Colt revolvers with strong but less positive 7th Cavalry ties mentioned by serial number by Mr. Kopech, but 4694 is earlier than that range, aligning itself more with the documented Colts than just the highly likely ones. Looking beyond its serial number and other known examples, we can also examine its current configuration. And it can be said with certainty that of the 632 Colt Single Action Army revolvers carried into battle by the 7th Cavalry on that hot, uncomfortable June day in 1876, that 302 of them were reported lost. Serial 4694, while not documented as lost that day, certainly left the U.S. military before its time. We know this because it retains its cavalry configuration with its original 7.5-inch barrel. Had it remained in service until 1895, as did at least 3 other documented Little Bighorn revolvers, it would have been part of the 1893 recall, had its barrel shortened to the 5.5-inch artillery configuration for eventual service in the Spanish-American War, and its return would have been documented. All these pieces of information allowed this Colt to speak for itself, and along the way, it built quite the case to be placed not only as a 7th Cavalry Colt, but possibly even among the doomed men of the star-crossed 7th Cavalry. It's a previously unknown cavalry model Colt that has come out of nowhere to live in rarefied air. It's a quintessentially American gun in one of the most popular fields in gun collecting, in its original configuration, with a serial number that places it not just on the list of likely candidates of 7th Cavalry service, but solidly bookended by those examples with documented and known service. For those unacquainted with such 6-shooters, Rock Island Auction Company offered serial number 4552 in May of 2022, which brought over $763,000. Serial 4519 currently resides in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Lot 5 Colts are highly valuable, immensely collectible, historic objects. From the Colt factory in Hartford, to Springfield, to Rock Island, Illinois, to the Dakota Territory, come August, the next stop on this historic revolver's path could be your collection, placing your name at the front of what is sure to be a lengthy and proud line of provenance. And it's only available at Rock Island Auction Company.